Hi, it's Mrs. Gales here to teach you about our senses today. We're going to discuss the five senses, how they work with the brain, and how the brain responds to those senses. So the first thing is make sure you know your five senses. You have your vision, you have your hearing, you have your taste, your smell, and your touch. All of these generate messages that are sent to the brain, and that is sent via a nerve. Alright, the first sense we're going to go over is the sense of sight. So the first thing, make sure you know that your eyes cannot work without light. That's why when you turn off the light in your house, it's harder for you to see. Light is a stimulus, boys and girls. It goes into your eyes and that generates an impulse on the back of the eye, and that impulse travels through the optic nerve, which is right here on the back, and that connects to the brain, and the brain gets the information from your eyes. So the first thing is light travels through our cornea. The cornea is this clear piece of tissue that sits on the front of the eye. If any of you wear contacts, you know about this because you have to put your contacts on the cornea. We have our pupil, which is the black part of your eye. The size of your pupil can get bigger and smaller, so depending on how much light there is. If your pupil is really big, that's usually in places with darkness. Your pupil opens up wider to allow more light to go through. When your pupil is really, really small and it shrinks in size, what that is doing is trying to not allow as much light in. And the pupil is the opening, is the black part of the eye. The color part of your eye is called the iris. The light, after it goes through the cornea, the pupil, it hits something called the lens. And the lens, what it does is focuses the light on the back of the eye called the retina. The retina is a layer of receptor cells that will make a nervous impulse, and that's sent through the optic nerve. Alright, so on the back of the eye, we have two types of cells that are receptor cells that help us to see colors. So for the first one is called rods. The second one is called cones. The rods actually help with seeing black, white, and gray colors. You don't need as much light for these, so they work really well in dim light. Then for the cones, these are the ones that help you to see bright colors. You do need a lot of light for these to work. That's why sometimes you can't see colors at night as well, and why at night it appears very dark. And then what's really cool is when you see something, let's say you're looking with your eyes and you see a person. On the back of your eye where the retina is, that image is flipped upside down. So it's really cool though, because when you look around, you're not seeing stuff upside down, but the back of the eye does flip that image. It's not until that image is sent to the brain that it's flipped the right side up again. So basically your brain interprets the information and corrects the information that you see. So just kind of give you an overview of what happens. You see a green apple. On the back of your eye where the retina is, the apple is flipped upside down. And then that information is sent to your brain, and your brain flips it back right side up. So that's why when you look around the room and stuff, you don't see things upside down, you actually see them the right way. Alright, so there's two types of eye problems. There's actually more, but these are probably the most common ones that you'll hear about. You have nearsightedness and farsightedness. Nearsightedness is when you can see really good up close, but when you start to look far away, stuff looks blurry. And that's why they call it nearsightedness, because you can see nearby better. Farsightedness means that you can see far away, but when you start to focus up close, things are very blurry. So for both of these people that have these eye problems, they would have to have glasses to correct them. And it all comes down to the size of their eye. Their eye is not the right size. Like for people that are nearsighted, their eyeball is actually too long. And then people that are farsighted, the eye is actually too short, so that gives them problems with focusing. All right, the next sense that I'm going to go over with you is your hearing. So we actually have three areas of the ear. We have the outer ear, we have what's called the middle ear, and then we have the inner ear. The outer ear, which is like this part that you see, is called the pinna. Anytime you hear, it's because sound waves travel into your ear canal via the pinna right here. Those sound waves strike your eardrum, which will create vibrations. Those vibrations vibrate the bones of the middle of the ear, which are called ossicles. We have the hammer, the anvil, and the stirp. Those are the three. By the way, these three bones are the smallest bones of your entire body. Once the stirp vibrates, it vibrates a part of the ear called the cochlea, which looks like a little snail. And then the cochlea vibrates and sends messages through the auditory nerve. Now you will see right here a part of the ear called the eustachian tube. This right here, this is actually a connection from your ear to like the side of your face to your mouth. If you've ever noticed, sometimes when you get like an ear infection, you might feel like soreness right here. You might have some drainage into your back of your throat. That eustachian tube also fills up with pressure whenever you go in high altitudes, like on a plane, and you can feel your ears pop. All right, so this is the step-by-step on how we hear. Our ear always responds to the sound waves, that's the stimulus. The impulse is generated by the cochlea, and it goes through the auditory nerve to the brain. And then your brain, kind of perceives what you're hearing based on what you've learned before. Then we have our eardrum, which is a membrane, and its job is to vibrate, and that's when sound waves hit it. Those vibrations are sent into the three bones, and what happens is those bones will vibrate the cochlea, and that's important because the cochlea has receptor cells that send messages to the auditory nerve. By the way, when somebody is deaf, they can have issues with any part of this system here. They can have a faulty auditory nerve, they can have a faulty cochlea or a faulty eardrum, and that can make you deaf on any part there. All right, now attached to the cochlea, we have something called a semicircular canal. This is also filled up with fluid, just like the cochlea. And as you basically move your head around, that fluid moves. And when it moves, it bends the cilia inside the cochlea and these canals. And that generates an impulse to the brain and helps to determine your balance. So your ear helps you to balance. That's why if you've ever been really sick with like an ear infection, you might feel dizzy, or you might notice ringing in your ear or something like that. That's because those two senses are connected together. All right, now for our sense of taste. Our sense of taste, we have taste buds. The taste buds that we have one for sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. Umami, the flavoring for this is more meat-like and savory. It's like when you eat a piece of steak, like that meat-like texture that you notice. Also, when you eat cheese, like that texture. Umami is actually a Japanese word for meat, so that's where that name comes from. Anytime we taste or smell things, there's chemicals from the food or from the scent that travels to a receptor, and then that receptor sends a nerve message to the brain. And you probably notice that your sense of taste and smell work together. If you ever had a really bad stuffy nose or a bad cold, you notice that you can't taste as well and you can't smell as well. You might even notice that your food tastes bland if you have a cold. That's because those two senses do work together. All right, So this is a picture of our tongue and the taste buds. Right here on our tongue we have these little bumps. That's where the taste buds are. Underneath the taste bud we have the nerve connections, which are these little blue things here. Those will send messages to the brain. What happens is our food combines with the pore up here at the top, and then it generates a response to those nerves. All right, the next thing we have is the nose. So whenever you smell something, the chemicals from whatever you're smelling bind with the receptors of your olfactory bulb, which is in your nasal cavity up here, and those messages are sent to the brain. All right, the last sense we have is our sense of touch. We do have receptors for just light touch, heavy pressure or heavy touch, pain, and temperature. What happens is our skin has these different receptors that notices the different types of touch that we have here, and those sensations travel through those nerves, through our spinal cord, and then to our brain. All right, so those are our five senses. Make sure you know the 5 senses and how they work and how they go to the brain. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Bye.